Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Free-to-Play Cast, your weekly show brought to you by MMOBomb.com, where we cover all the free-to-play news in the last week. I'm your host, Mike Byrne, a.k.a. magicman. You know it by now. You've been watching it a while. At least I hope you have. Thanks for coming with us. And who else would be here but my friend, maybe down with a little bit of PAX Pox, we don't know, Mr. Jason Winter. How are you, sir?
Just a little bit, just a little mild sore throat, kind of drowsy easily. But I mean, at least it's beautiful outside. I mean, like 70 degrees, sunny, warm. I mean, how's it where you are?
That's very kind of you, sir. That's very kind. It is about 22 degrees outside, and in my neck of the woods, there's about 6-7 inches of snow. So.
Oh, well, I mean, it's practically the same as what I've got.
Oh, yeah, it's close. Before we get into the news, though, how was PAX South?
PAX was pretty good. It was, not as big as PAX Prime. Certainly, it was their first year down there, so they're still kind of growing. It didn't have necessarily a lot of the big names there, but it had its moments, had a few things. I'll be talking about one later during my debate. So.
Oh, all right. Well, let's get started and go over to the news. All right. So first up this week, our favorite dead horse, ArcheAge. Beat. ArcheAge from Tryon Worlds. Actually, I hope this is good news. I hope this is good news.
MMOs are founded on hope.
And the tears of children. I don't know if this is good news, but we'll go through it. So ArcheAge has a brand new producer, Merv Coralon Lee Kwai. Coralon, of course, being the online handle. And being the new producer, he stepped in and dropped a producer's letter to signify what's going to happen in 2015. First off, let's talk about just new producer in general. That's got to be a tough transition for a game that's already, for all intents and purposes, a year under its belt.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting to come at this point. It's like, well, why did the old producer leave? Why did he step down?
Well, problems are aplenty, and we don't need to rehash those. Just search ArcheAge on MMOBomb.com, and you'll be fine. You'll get a list of problems.
Or really search it on any other site out there.
Right. So here's a couple things from the forum post in the producer's letter that I thought maybe things could turn around a little bit. I'm not like overly ambitiously hopeful, but maybe there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. Just maybe it's not a frickin' train. So I'm going to show you guys some of our ArcheAge first look while we're talking. So first off...
This is ArcheAge, so that should be a boat at the end of the tunnel.
Right. First off, ArcheAge, Coralon dives right in and addresses a huge issue that the player base has had pretty much since day one, right? And that's communication. Communication. So going forward, the intent the new producer wants to aim for is to make sure that Tryon Worlds is more transparent with their communication. And this doesn't just include details on new content and what's coming, but also be more transparent when it comes to issue resolution and changes in the game long term based on player feedback. And I want to be hopeful for that. But I'm a little dubious for, ironically, the reasons Tryon is constantly giving on why they can't do certain things. They ain't the developer. What do you think? Am I being just a little bit pessimistic here?
They can always communicate, but that communication most of the time is, this is what SL Games says we have to do. So there's your communication. In terms of actually talking about stuff like getting in refunds or whatever other kind of technical issues or whatever, stuff that should be fixed in any case, I just feel like they're 6 months too late for a lot of people. I think a lot of people just didn't like how it was early on. They didn't communicate when they needed to, and now, let's be honest, either who knows exactly, but I would guess they have fewer people playing down they did at launch. It's a little slower time. They have the time to give more communication and do that sort of thing, but you needed it back when you had a lot more people and it was a lot more of an issue. Now the people who are still there, certainly they still want greater communication, but the ones who were really angry about it have already left probably. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure they would have liked to have seen some things fixed too. Not just say we're going to talk
don't
about
tell
it
us
more.
You're going to fix it. And that's sort of the whole thing with the whole letter in general.
Right.
Here's all the stuff we're going to do. Now you got to do it.
Well, and Coralon did start to talk about some of that stuff, right? They were talking about player feedback. This feedback was a major contributor in some changes that are coming very quickly, particularly when it comes to the game's economy and certain items not really pricing in the ballpark that Tryon Worlds thought they would based on either their inability to be farmed or their overabundant ability to be farmed, and some loyalty program changes. So popular cosmetic items, companions, even the sloth glider are now going to be available in the loyalty system, as well as in the traditional supply crates that you can already obtain. So mounts and gliders are going to be constantly reevaluated to ensure top-tier mounts retain their value. And entry barriers to popular farming spots will be lowered as well. So it feels like at least there's the inkling, the beginning of taking legitimate player concerns, albeit small ones, in the grand scheme, right? I mean, we're talking about the gliders, the sloth gliders availability, and taking these smaller things and maybe starting to kind of turn a corner and pull this back before it gets wildly out of hand in North America.
I gotta say though, I always wonder about when there's like a sandbox game, or anything game that has like an open economy, and even Guild Wars 2 gets this a little bit. People are like, yeah, we want to be able to get everything and be able to have a free and open economy where we can buy and trade everything. Oh wait, stuff's too expensive. We don't want it free and open anymore. We want the prices to be controlled, to be lower. It's like, the problem is you're not that guy who's farming 12 hours a day. The people who are doing that are the ones who are getting those nice prices or inflating the prices or whatever. So unless you're going to be one of those guys, you're going to have to deal with it. But yeah, I guess it's nice to see that they are, recognizing some of these issues and getting to them, or at least have the intent of getting to them. It just still depends on how and when and how quickly they'll get to it.
The comments, not only on the producer's letter, but even on our own posting of the article, are mixed, obviously, and that's pretty much to be expected. Although I would venture a guess that if I did some math, they're more negative than positive, including things like what sucker is going to fall for more empty promises. And that's something, we talked about many shows ago, is that Tryon killed its trust factor with the entire launch and debacle of ArcheAge.
That's what I was just saying, too, is they should have done this 5-6 months ago.
Yep.
Doing it now is going to have a lot less of an effect. People already have their second chance to make a first impression and all that. You don't really have it, so.
And then, of course, there's one of the points we already made, too. It's, I love that they're going to make changes based on feedback, but as the publisher, how much can they really change as far as in-game content? They can change their loyalty system, their cash shop, and things like that.
Did they ever put in the 10% discount? Have they got that in yet?
No, remember they switched that into a 10% increase when you get credits, but it doesn't.
I thought that was a temporary measure. Okay.
It is a temporary measure, supposedly.
That's what I was saying. So they still haven't fulfilled that part of it.
No, not to my knowledge. I don't believe so. If somebody in the comments, if that has changed, let me know. Then I'm behind on my ArcheAge and need to update that one. I'm hopeful for it. I do like that it feels like they're listening, but I have it's too little, too late concern. Quality of life was another big issue, game integrity issues and fairness. While no details were given about those things, they were at least mentioned. So it's nice to see that at least they're willing to say there are issues in the game that are creating very unfair situations, and we're going to keep looking at those. Of course, Diamond Shores, the new PvP zone, is getting teased right now, and it does so in this letter, although no dates or anything on that one are given. So, I don't know. Good luck to anybody that plays ArcheAge on a grand scale. It's still not enough for me to go back to it, nor stop my Rift boycott. So
to their credit, though, I did look at later in the thread and did see Krolon responding to people later on in there.
Yes.
So they are at least keeping that much communication open.
Yeah, at least they're sticking to the mission for the first day or two. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be.
You got to at least keep up the illusion that long.
Right. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term fix, but we'll see. Good luck to him. Good luck to him. Moving on to happier news. Nosgoth. And we've talked about Nosgoth a little here, but not really about the game itself. More, our discussion at that point was more oriented around them having their early access packages, which we've talked about on the show before. Now Nosgoth has entered open beta, and I'll show you some footage here. So if you've been holding off, you wanted to check it out, but you've been holding off because you didn't want to pay for the closed beta / early access bucket, all that stuff, you're free to go and check it out now. Totally open beta, so unless something horrible goes wrong, you would anticipate no wipes. Have you spent some time in Nosgoth? I did, although I was tricked into it. I'll get into that in a few minutes.
Wow. Yeah, I did. Spunkify and I actually did a bomb live, like back in April or May or whenever, when they first went into their closed alpha. And it was a little tough for me. I think it was partially my computer that I was having trouble getting a decent frame rate. So, and it's a very twitchy, very fast-paced game. So it's definitely something you don't want to have a bad frame rate on. We talked about back then how it's a difficult thing for them to do it asymmetrically. Basically, if you're not used to it, basically the human sides have ranged weapons and the vampires are melee. So, and you know how that is. Anytime you're in that kind of situation, either you're the range guy and it seems like the melee can always close in on you, or you're the melee guy and it seems like the range will always keep you at bay. That's at least what happened to me because I was crappy at it. So it's something that looked like it had some pretty good potential. It may not be right up my alley, but if they can pull off that kind of asymmetrical gameplay and really get the balance going in both of those, it could be something really interesting, especially if you are a Legacy of Kain fan and want to play in that universe.
And that's how I got tricked. Okay, so this one, it's by Square Enix, and it has Nosgoth, the whole Legacy of Kain, the Blood Omen, the Shadow Reaver, all that. Shadow Reaver, Soul Reaver, sorry. Soul Reaver, I loved those games, loved them. So way early in the process, being, press, we get the press releases and things like that from different companies, and I get one from Square Enix talking about Nosgoth, and as soon as I saw the word Nosgoth, I'm going to kill that dog. I'm not actually going to kill that dog. That dog's pretty cool, but
don't write letters to Magic Man.
No, don't write letters. I'm not going to harm my dog. But I get one of the very first pressers about the game, and I see Nosgoth, and I'm like, oh, yes, it's about time. It's been years since we had an entry in this franchise. It just kind of disappeared. Oh, this is going to be awesome. Oh, and it's online, and I'm thinking, damn, we're going to have a Legacy of Kain MMO. That is sweet.
This is where it's your problem and you're not being tricked. This is your problem if you don't do research.
Well, the initial presser was just like, here's what we got. We're going to be doing this game based on this franchise and everything. It was really early in the process.
Maybe I didn't see that.
And so, and even at that point, they gave a website link, but when you clicked on it, it was basically like, it was a splash it was a splash page with the Nosgoth logo and everything. And I'm like, this is going to be sweet. And so it comes out, and then I find out, it's this PvP, asymmetrical gameplay, humans, vampires, and I'm like, oh, damn. Damn.
It's not like you were tricked into buying it, because you already,
No, I wasn't.
Later on.
I wasn't tricked into buying it, but I was significantly disheartened, because now it's not only did you take the IP that I love a lot and get my hopes up with it, but then you turned it into something that 9 times out of 10 I'm not going to enjoy at all, right? Like you couldn't have made this further from my wheelhouse at that point. However, once I got access to it and started playing it, it is addictive. I've got to give it that. The gameplay is addictive. In the alpha and closed beta and stuff, the matchmaking was terrible.
Yeah, I should recall that.
It was awful. Not only did it take long to get a match, but when you did, there was a fair chance that you were just going to get pwned across the entire board.
That's my excuse for why I did so terribly.
Now, however, since the open beta has started, you can start to see their matchmaking system at work, and they made a bunch of fixes, but you couldn't really see it because they just did not have enough people playing the game for the matchmaking system to do its job. It was trying, but it was failing miserably just because nobody was there. Now in open beta, after all of those changes, I think the matchmaking is getting tighter. It's getting tighter. There's still the drawback on people that have been playing it since alpha are just ridiculously better than you just jumping in at the time. So there still is a fair opportunity to get it handed to you big time if an experienced player gets into a match that you're in. But I do like some of the changes they're making. Visually, the matchmaking system is looking good. Visually, the game, I love the look. I mean, they did nail the atmosphere at the very least. At the very least, they nailed the Nosgoth atmosphere.
And I am definitely, when I play as a human, I am pretty scared shitless when a vampire jumps on me from above and starts ripping out my throat. You know.
Yeah. I mean, if they close that gap, it's frightening. It's frightening. And if you see more than one closing the gap, you just want to respawn immediately.
Yeah.
Can we get this over with and respawn? So now it's in open beta. Have you touched it since open?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I would suggest if you touched this one in alpha or closed beta and you were disappointed by the matchmaking, but you kind of enjoyed the game, I would definitely recommend going and checking it out again. Because the matchmaking system is doing a lot better job now. If it didn't interest you at all in alpha, like it sounds like it may have just been ho-hum for you, there isn't anything to go back to yet to give it another world. There's still only the two main game modes, only one of which everybody plays. And so they're going to be adding more things over time, but it's one that I would recommend if you're into PvP. It's one I would recommend checking out, and so far I like what they're doing monetarily.
Yeah, and it's only open beta, so it's like you say, it's free for anyone right now. Anyone can get in. So I'll probably at least look at it and play around with it. Even if I don't like it, then yeah, I'll just wait on it. But you know, no reason not to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to score this one a 10 out of 10 or anything like that. I mean, it's just not that type of game, especially for me, and you know my checkered history with PvP. I'm spotty at best. But is it a nice way to kill an afternoon? Yeah, and you will find yourself doing that. If you go in and you enjoy one or two matches, there's a good chance you're going to spend the next 3 or 4 hours playing it before you even realize that you spent the time. So, congrats on open beta. Check it out if you want to. Nosgoth, Square Enix. Finally up today. Let's close that. Finally up today. I'm going to let you introduce this one, because I know you're a Triad Wars. You're kind of watching that one closely. And so, I don't know, are you into this next title at all? Or were you ever? I never was.
I was actually, before it was even free to play. The original incarnation, I tried it out. We're talking about APB Reloaded, by the way. We'll throw that out there. And I played around with it for a while, and I kind of liked it under the older system. Granted, they really had a weird sort of payment model for it, like it was based on hours in the game, and that didn't work out. They closed after like a month and a half. Came back a while later, Gamers First, now Reloaded Game or whatever other aegis they're under, brought it back as a free-to-play game. Jumped back in, and it just felt different to me. Like I didn't feel it didn't feel quite as smooth for me in terms of the driving and the shooting. I don't know what it was. Obviously, it was the same game, but maybe time had passed, and I just didn't have the same feel for it. And as I read our article and I've read some of the comments, I originally thought it seemed a way to pay to win, and there were too many hackers in it. I hear that's not quite as much, according to the comments. Maybe they've changed that, or maybe, again, I was probably bad, bad at shooting or whatever, or like I said, didn't feel right. So it's something that hasn't really interested me since it went free to play, but it's got a lot of players. Got a lot of people. I've visited their forums before. They're full of activity. Again, with half of them complaining about the hackers, and the other half complaining about pay to win. But yeah. So as you can say, it's going to consoles. That's our big deal. It is heading to consoles, PS4, Xbox One, and it's a way for them to sort of take it back almost to the Grand Theft Auto kind of roots, which is it started on consoles, later it's going to be on PC. So you'd think it would be a fairly popular buy on consoles, or a fairly popular download at least.
I would think so. I mean, to me, this one almost should have been on consoles first.
Yeah.
And I know the whole logistics on PC and porting to consoles versus porting from console to PC. Like, I get all of that stuff. But just from a type of game, I kind of feel like this should have been on consoles first, even if it would have been, a lesser graphical fidelity, because we would have been on the 360 and the PlayStation 3. Yeah, and there's not really much to say, right? APB Reloaded is going to consoles, but I do want to talk about this a little bit because we're starting to see now that the next-gen consoles are starting to get their legs underneath them, particularly with the Sony PlayStation 4 having Sony Online Entertainment on that side of the business doesn't hurt. But we're starting to see what we expected to see, and that was an influx of free-to-play being pushed onto the consoles, whether it's brand new titles or existing titles like APB Reloaded. So I want to talk about that for a second. First off, do you even console game at all, or are you just strictly PC?
Dude, do you even console?
Do you even console, bro?
No, I don't. I generally have poured my money into my PC with not as much left over. I could get a console, and then I'd probably still be playing the PC most of the time. So I realize not so much.
See, I'm a huge console guy. I'm just a video game guy in general. I mean, I collect old systems and things like that,
Look
too.
at Mr. Moneybags here.
Right,
Console,
yeah.
Games on there.
Right. But as far as my MMOs go, my MMORPGs go, I've always been a PC baby, with one exception. When I first got into MMORPGs, the very first one I ever played, I had a shit PC. Right? It was awful. And so I didn't even attempt to play on that. I got EverQuest Online Adventures for the PlayStation 2.
Wow.
That was my first foray into MMORPGs. I went from there to Final Fantasy XI on the PlayStation 2 the day it came out in North America. And I played that for years on the console. Finally, we upgraded the computer, and my wife started playing Final Fantasy XI on the PC because we had to keep switching players. You know, I'd play for a few hours, she'd play for a few hours type deal. But now we could finally play together. From there, we graduated, and then I went back and I played all the old MMORPGs prior to that, so I knew where they were coming from, right? I want to feel the heritage. So I have for years played MMORPGs and MMOs in general on consoles, and I will continue to do so. I do think they're a viable place for them.
I think they're better suited for games like this, which aren't necessarily MMORPGs.
Yes.
Stuff like this. And another one, World of Tanks, that's been pretty big on the consoles. I remember Victor from Wargaming talking about how he had to kind of educate Microsoft on how to do free-to-play on consoles.
Yes.
And I think that's part of what we're starting to see the fruit of now. They're kind of starting to finally warm up to that sort of thing.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy XI worked really well on the consoles because it was entirely
doing okay, and like you mentioned, SOE, they talk about DCUO doing huge now.
Yeah, but DCUO to me was always consoles. Even when you play it on the computer, it feels like you should be playing it with a controller.
Pretty much.
But Final Fantasy XI worked really well on consoles. I played it on the PS2 and then upgraded it onto the 360 when it came out for there. But it was menu driven. You're right, when you do start getting into the hotbar ones, Final Fantasy XIV has a nice hotbar crossover for a controller, especially on the PlayStation 4. It's doing much better on the PlayStation 4 than the PlayStation 3. But some of those other games do have a harder time with 60 different skills and being able to adequately use them. I have a question, though. You mentioned Wargaming kind of educating Microsoft on free-to-play, and I remember those articles when that stuff happened, and we all thought it was very funny, because he was being very glib about it, and we're going to teach them how to do something. APB Reloaded on the Xbox One is yet another title that we still find behind the Xbox Live Gold membership. So while the game itself is free, just like World of Tanks, just like all these other games that we see being ported to the Xbox One, it's still technically hidden behind a paywall of some type, a $60 per year if you buy it in the United States from Microsoft, Gold membership. Do you think in the long run that hurts Xbox One compared to PlayStation 4 as far as if I've got to only pick one system to buy? Do you think that becomes a factor at all?
I think that's part of the education Victor was talking about.
Oh, it definitely was. He specifically mentioned not wanting to be behind that wall, and they made them be behind that wall.
Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's a huge thing. Now, of course, if you have a really, really big game like World of Tanks, and if it's only, I think it's still only on like the Microsoft consoles, then you can maybe get away with it because people will be okay with doing it for something that big. Whereas, I don't think anyone's going to necessarily buy an Xbox Live Gold just to play APB. So, if you have a few big games like that, it can be viable. But and it depends on how many of them are going to go over. You got stuff like that. You got, I think, Neverwinter that's coming to the console soon. Xbox, right. Xbox One, and so on.
Smite,
yeah. I do agree, though. I think it's a better advantage for PlayStation to not have to deal with that. I think when you talk free to play, you want it to be free. You don't want to have to also pay your Live Gold membership to have to get into it.
There's also the mentality that Microsoft has had for years, right? When it comes
consoles
to
in general.
Well, the one specific thing that I want to point out here, and it's only held by Microsoft, and I get logically where they're coming from, but from a business standpoint, it doesn't make sense to do this anymore. They are just absolutely against you being able to play a game that somebody else that's playing with you might actually be playing on a PlayStation instead of an Xbox One. Like, they do not want any of that cross-server stuff. Like they did on the 360 for Final Fantasy XI. At that time, you could play on a server, and it didn't matter. Some people were PC, some people were Xbox 360, some people were PlayStation 2. As they kind of moved forward after Final Fantasy XI, they put like this big stance in where they just, no, we're not going to. Even you see it with shooters now. Where Microsoft is, nope, they don't want to do that at all. And I understand from a business perspective, you want to protect your brand and you'd like more people playing on your system. But I think in the long term, with everything being interconnected nowadays, that mentality's got to go away now, right?
Yeah, to some extent. I mean, again, that's part of the education process, I think.
Anyway, APB Reloaded, headed to consoles. If you got to put a final stamp on it, Jason, who do you think is winning as far as the free-to-play / MMO aspect? Is it clearly Sony, like I seem to think it is, or am I off base?
Like you said, I mean, there are some big games out there on Xbox, on the Xboxes, so I think it's pretty close, actually.
You think it's close? I don't think it's close at all. Man, maybe I'm just way off base, but I don't know. To me, the mentality and the Xbox
Live
membership.
depends on how many of those millions of people playing World of Tanks or whatever are on that as opposed to
right.
PC, but yeah.
All right, let's move over, do the bombs, and call it a week. All right, I'm going to go first. I'm going to give a dub bomb this week. Something good. Yay! To David Hayter. If you don't know who that is, and you need to go back and play Metal Gear Solid some more. Famous voice for Solid Snake, as well as myriad other voice acting jobs. David is doing the voice for Winter Soldier, who is coming to Marvel Heroes 2015's lineup. We're actually going to have an interview with David coming up shortly in about a week or so. So stay tuned for that. I just want to hear him say Snake.
You want to hear that gravelly Snake voice.
I do. I just want to hear that gravelly Snake voice while we're doing the interview. So I'm looking forward to it. Huge DeBomb, big fan, and although I'm kind of lukewarm about Marvel Heroes, I think it's great having him there doing the voice. You have a PAX-related one. What's up?
Yeah, I'm going to give a DeBomb to Gigantic. That was probably my favorite game of PAX that I got a chance to try out. If you're not familiar, it's a kind of like arena battler. So in the Vegas sense, a little like Team Fortress 2. They have a bunch of different characters, like it's over a dozen. I want to say it was 14. And basically, like I said, the notion of it is 5-on-5 teams, and you also have like this giant guardian, which is sort of your. It's almost like your base, but he moves around. And the object is to take down the opponent's guardian, which we do by killing other people and claiming control points and so on. Just a lot of fun. Just the gameplay of it, very approachable, very accessible. A few different ways to build your character. I like their advancement system in game, as opposed to, and it also bears some resemblance to a MOBA on some levels because you have sort of the in-game advancement, which I'm not usually a fan of. But it's not like there's this huge item shop with 100 different things you got to figure out. It's pretty much you can follow trees on your character to figure out what skills you want. Like I played as Sven, who's sort of kind of like an AOE and support guy. So I could decide if I want to do more of the damage with AOEs, how I wanted them to do. Like, do I want my AOEs to have a wider range, or do I want them to do more damage? Or I could play more with the healing or the support aspects of things. There are a bunch of different characters for a bunch of different play styles. I also play like a turret guy who's like a mobile gun platform, that sort of thing. And I just thought it was a lot of fun. It reminded me a little of kind of like if you've been watching a little bit of how Overwatch is supposed to look. It gave me that kind of feel as well. I think it could be something that turns out to be pretty good when they get it out.
Very cool. Sailor Naruto 39 says, dub bomb to Skyforge. And
not a dub bomb.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I apologize. I read it wrong. Thank you. A-bomb, something bad, to Skyforge and games with combat systems like it, because we extensively covered the combat system reveal that they gave us. I was excited for Skyforge until I realized it's just another tab targeting game pandering as action combat. A better word for such games would be tabless targeting, not action combat. Action combat would be something like Vindictus and even C9. I have a problem with games these days trying to generate buzz over having supposed action combat. I'll probably try it anyway, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those hybrid-ish games where there is some movement around. It's not true action like Terror or something like that, but I'm happy with there being at least some movement.
Next
as
up.
opposed to, that Final Fantasy 14 game. Which is all right.
Every chance you get!
Boy, the A-bombs are out in force today. This comes from Breckner Catalin. It says, my A-bomb goes to Steam again for having so many free-to-play titles that just suck. Their greenlight system needs a major revamp. And I will say that is kind of the one good thing about the consoles being a little picky about their free-to-play is the quality still seems to be pretty good. And I hope they don't just glom onto every free-to-play game, and so you do have 1,000 of them out there on each console. So
open up the floodgates.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinetic Fetus says, it pains me to give Warframe an A-bomb, but it gets one this week, primarily for how tedious the crafting of frames and weapons is getting, and also for the 24-hour wait after a failed mastery test. I don't think I've seen an A-bomb for Warframe in a long time.
Yeah.
And the one A-bomb that I do recall for Warframe was rectified 2 weeks later by a patch. So, all right, question of the week. Last week we asked you guys based on our H1Z1 chat. Which did you see the comments on YouTube?
I did not. No.
There was a whole group of people that hated that we were talking about H1Z1. Just hated that we were talking about a game that wasn't technically free to play just yet. And I'm reading the comments, and I'm like, I get where everybody's coming from. You have to buy to get into this one right now. But also, if we didn't cover it at all, you'd probably be upset that we weren't covering a new free-to-play game that was coming to the market. I was just amazed.
So apparently this is the first time we should have been talking about Nosgoth. We should have never covered it before now.
Right.
Because now it's actually free.
No, I thought it was weird. Question of the week. Are H1Z1's airdrops pay to win? And man, we've got a nice eclectic variation here. Toll Short says H1Z1 airdrops are pay to win, in my opinion.
No, that's what it says.
I'm sorry, pay to event, in my opinion. I'm all over the place today.
Wow.
Are pay to event, in my opinion. That's worse than pay to win. Imagine paying for rifts in Rift. To me, it's the lowest of the low. The mechanic is fine. The rewards in it are fine. The excitement it adds is fine. Them charging for it is SOE at its finest. I do think it was intended to be pay to win, and its release date wasn't accidental. I think it was only changed due to the outcry. In its current form, there's little reason to buy it without a group to help you get your loot, which begs the question, who designs a cash shop item they don't intend to sell? To me, it's paying for an event that contains a lockbox that could be stolen. I can't see how that is in any way is good for gamers.
Well, the first thing is, if it's not good for gamers, don't pay for it. So that part is easy enough.
I hate that excuse.
I
mean, I agree with you, but it's one of those cliche. I don't know. I'm with you.
If there was a Penny Arcade video a while back, and this is what they actually were referring to. They have something. They talk about some Asian game that had something called a money bomb, where you pay for it, but you don't get anything. You just throw money out to people, and they get the gold or whatever. And that's what it was based on. About the good feeling, and supposedly the guy who pays for it, gets a good feeling from it and all that. So that's what they were basing it off of. But obviously, in this case, you can actually get the stuff too. I agree. It's something they're gonna have to tweak a lot to make sure it's actually valuable to the person paying for it, but also isn't so valuable that it's the only way they gear up because it's straight pay to win. So I don't know.
Next up, go ahead.
All right, this comes from Hick64. Quote of the week. Initially, I was outraged by airdrops having weapons and ammo because in the 15-ish live streams I watched, and many dev posts on Reddit and Twitter, they really hammered home the point that this game is not pay to win. Many times they specifically indicated they would not sell guns, ammo, food, or water. My outrage cooled a few days later, and I think the idea of paying for a server event is good, but gaining any loot through microtransaction goes against the core of the survival game genre. I think long-term H1Z1 has the most potential of the current survival horror games, but I'm going to wait and see before purchasing. And I'll admit, the couple of times I was killed by guns, like which I never find in the game.
Nope.
I wondered, did they find those or did they get it off an airdrop?
They tweaked loot again today, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
We're recording on the 27th. I haven't had a chance. You and I have kind of been holding off on a few fixes here to make it not incredibly boring to watch a first look video. But we're going to film one Thursday of this week, and they've tweaked the loot again, so we'll see. Burn It Up Again. Love this name. Burn It Up Again. H1Z1's airdrops are, in my opinion, are still leaning towards pay to win, but they come at a high risk/reward ratio. From the percentages that were read off, you don't automatically get a game-breaking drop, which is true. It's a 10% chance of dropping a crate that has weapons or ammo. Just a chance of getting a good gun and some ammo, among other things. But if you factor in the chance of being killed by a player, AI, or starvation on the way to the drop, or having it looted before you even get there, the risk is somewhat high. In short, I still think it's leaning towards pay to win, mainly because you're still paying for a chance of better gear. Cheers. Cheers to you, Burn It Up Again. I couldn't agree more. That's succinctly and nicely said in my book.
Yep. All right, one more from 5000 CZ. It would be better if there are randomly spawned radio towers, and when players spot them, they can activate them to get the crates. They can also still include the loud plane sounds to attract zombies and players, or the players can find drop loot of a walkie-talkie or something to call in the airdrop, but make the walkie-talkie very rare and hard to find. I don't think they can do randomly spawned radio towers. You're just playing around and suddenly a radio tower pops up in the middle of whatever. That's a little iffy. The walkie-talkies, or even them just being a general random thing, I think would be okay. I mean, again, they want to make money off something, so...
I still think a viable solution is everybody gets one airdrop every 24 hours. If you want to buy more, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. And that's probably also, too, the reason we're seeing a lot now is because they come in that package. You'll probably see a lot less once people run those out. Run out of those.
Yeah, because if you bought the one pack, everybody got 3 and whatever. So question of the week this week, which console does free-to-play gaming better, the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One? You could even say, if you want to make the question a little broader, which console does MMOs better in general? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, come on over to mmobomb.com. Mr. Winter, where can everybody check you out, sir?
They can check me out on Twitter at WinterInformal, streaming twitch.tv/JasonWinter, and my blog is on jasonwinter.wordpress.com.
You heard it. Let us know what you think in the comments about ArcheAge. If you're playing Nosgoth, let us know what you think of the new matchmaking now that there's actually players to play the damn thing with. And of course, answer the question of the week. Don't forget your weekly bombs. It's such a huge part of the show. D-bomb for something good, A-bomb for something bad. I'm Mike Byrne, aka Magic Man. You can follow me on Twitter at MagicMan1. Until next week, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.